Hello, one and all, and welcome back, yes, back to the Great Unknown Audio Show with me, your illustrious host and most appropriate face for radio, Maxim Jennings. And yes, we're going on another adventure. That's right, you heard it here first, folks. Today, I've packed up my bags again. Last time you heard from me, I was in Perth, but I was only in Perth for a few days. Just kind of recuperating before getting ready for an ultra mega road trip. So yes, and we are on day one. We have just concluded day one. I picked up my Volkswagen T-Cross SUV from Avis, the rent-a-car shop in Perth, and made a 250-mile or 5-hour long trip down to Bremer Bay, which is right on the southwest coast of Australia. It's southeast of Perth, but it's south. I even went on the Great Southern Highway to get to this place. It's incredibly remote, beautifully explained by the SOS sign in the top right-hand corner of my phone, telling me that I have no cellular data and no cellular service whatsoever. So we are in remote of remote. We are staying at Camp Kitchen on Boxwood Hill tonight. I've just pitched up my tent, and it's a pretty lovely establishment. I was met by the lovely Kevin as I arrived in the pitch black. Yep, like most people would advise, you don't really want to drive in the dark in Australia because you don't know what wildlife is out there, and it can do a lot of damage to your car if you do hit certain members of a certain wildlife, especially if that's a rental car. So not my wisest of choices, but nonetheless it had to be done in order to arrive and have time to sleep. I've made a few extra purchases since the last time I camped to try and improve my sleep. I have invested in a blow-up roll mat, mattressy kind of thing. I blew that up perfectly well. No sort of incompetence, apart from when it got to the pillow, which is attached to the mattress but has a separate blowhole. And I was blowing for a good 10 minutes with nothing happening. It's one of those plasticky ones, whereas the other ones have little air pockets in them, so you can actually tell when you're blowing something up. That one was like an old school rubbery thing, and those really don't sit well with me or my mouth, and I ended up just really hurting my cheeks after a long period of time. I remember when I was camping at a festival once, staying in the same tent as one of my very close friends who knows how physically incompetent I am, and so he watched me for a good 15 minutes try and blow that up and just was laughing to himself before he did it within the space of 2 minutes. So that's kind of what my friends are used to as well. So that's kind of what we're dealing with every time I go on a solo trip. Kind of the problems that you would not really think are a problem. They are a problem for me. So anyway, moving on. Yes, so I bought the roll mat. I bought a sleeping bag. What a smart guy! I bought a sleeping bag for a tent, for a camping trip. I mean, how ingenious is that? Yep, I've made that purchase, which is good. Even though we are in the west, it shouldn't get nowhere near as low a temperature as it did in Tasmania. Even at night time, it's very windy out here. So although it may display that it's only 15 degrees, it probably gets a bit lower than that. So always good to have a little bit more cushion, heat and comfort alongside this trip. And then I've done a bit more organising. I've planned the first 5 days or so of my itinerary to this 21-day extravaganza. Well, that's how long I've booked the rent-a-car for, and the rent-a-car comes in at about £30 a day for that, including full coverage of insurance, which I didn't have on the other two cars because I was only going for a short period of time. But I thought, seeing as we are in the remote of the remote, we're not quite in the outback, but I was driving down a few highways today, and for 50 miles there was no town, no cars, and that was in the middle of the day. So it's always good to take extra precaution by getting third-party insurance coverage at least. So that was done. Also, I made a grocery stop the night before whilst I was staying at Quokka Hostel in Perth, and bought some supplies that I can eat on the go, don't require any form of cooking or stove. So I've got I've got some delightful treats for myself whilst trying to remain considerably healthy. For dinner tonight, on this evening's menu, I've got some raw cauliflower, which I have tried a number of times before. As a child, I used to go around with my mum at the big Sainsbury's in Hedge End, which is, I have to let you know, it's in the top 5 biggest Sainsbury's in the country. It is absolutely monumental. I think it still is. It's connected to a Marks and Spencer's, which is probably just as big, and we had a great few years doing some shopping in Sainsbury's and Marks and Spencer's in Hedge End. And as a kid, I used to eat raw mushrooms, carrots, broccolis, and cauliflowers. Sometimes whilst going around with my mum in the trolley, just to keep me entertained, as I was quite a larger than life toddler, and was seemingly always hungry. So they always needed something to keep me occupied in my stomach from having extra cravings. So yes, raw cauliflower, some sardines in I think it's oil, sunflower oil. I've got some wholemeal bread, big loaf of that, cost me £1. Like the basic of the basic, one that you get in Lidl for probably about 40p. Here in Australia it costs £1, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I've got some almond spread, so maybe dessert I'll have I don't know, almond spread on toast. I'll probably make a sardine sandwich and have my side of cauliflower, just to just to mix it up a bit. Oh, that sounds fucking terrible. Sounds like prison food, but I didn't buy a number of different things, as though I thought I was pretty organised. What I did get was a little wooden cutlery set, so I don't know how long that's going to last me or how clean it's going to be by the end of this trip, but it was worth taking precaution. Like, this is not all the only supplies I'm going to buy for this trip. I bought food enough probably for 4 days, but considering I'll be doing a lot of outdoor activity, I think I'll be getting rather peckish as I go along. But hopefully over the course of this 3 weeks, we'll try and lose a bit of weight, keep off the beer as much as possible, and stay outdoors, do lots of walking and lots of eating healthy, hopefully. So that's that. I've got a number of different other delicacies in a cool bag that I bought. That's pretty smart, and with some other groceries. So there's that to look forward to as well, and a further date. But yeah, I guess I'd show you a bit about Perth, as I was there for 3 days. I think I remember in the last episode telling you a little bit about the fact that I didn't find a place to sleep on the first night. I had to stay in the airport. Fantastic sleep, by the way. Then I checked into Quokka Hostel, which was very European friendly. I would say I was the only native English speaker there, and so at some points did feel a little bit alienated. Lots of Frenchies, a lot of Germans, and they kind of spoke English to each other, not so much to me. I don't know what it was. Maybe you just have those kind of feels at some hostels where it's just not your hostel. So I kind of kept myself to myself. Facilities were mediocre at best. I was in a room of 4 people, and it felt like I was in a kind of psychopath waiting ward or something like that. White walls, no space for anything, a big locker in the middle that was disgusting and grey. Place had no character, so less said about that the better. Less said about the people the better. I'm sure they were lovely people, but there were a lot of permanent residents there, and I'm not really a big fan of that. So we don't really hold that in high regard. But Perth itself, I didn't really go around that much. I was kind of trying to save as much money as possible over the last 3 days to help me have some more funds for this trip. I went to a place called Bold Park, and that was absolutely lovely. I ended up doing a 20k that day to go and see a sunset, which was, I would say, underwhelming. But considering I saw a great sunset the day before and thought, look, I have to go down to the Perth coast, have a look at the sunset over the Indian Ocean, and see if I can catch a glimpse of something amazing. But that wasn't to be. It was mediocre at best, and I went to a lookout point which was still like an hour's walk away from the sea, so I was quite far away. I was close to the central business district, about 5 kilometres away. Went through a few shopping malls and to on a few public transport things, but I would, from what I saw, which was not much, it was okay. It's probably not got as much character as some other places I've been, but not really a fair reflection, as I wasn't really looking to explore that much. I would have wanted to go to the botanical gardens, but I think I'll be returning to Perth in a week or so. So maybe second time the charm, and we will have a different perspective on it. But with that being said, let's get a bit onto the itinerary and kind of explain what we're doing in Western Australia. Like I mentioned, 21-day road trip. Day 1, we've arrived here. We are close to a place called Bremer Bay, which is also very close to a place called Fitzgerald National Park. And just like in Tasmania, with the national parks, you have to get a permit, which I've bought, but they said it has to be printed off, and I forgot to ask the owners to print it off. Oh no, well, that's a nightmare. They've probably gone to bed now. I don't like causing a fuss. Yeah, but I've got a permit just to go into all the national parks for 4 weeks. That cost me, wasn't too dear actually, I think about £35 to any national park in Western Australia. Slightly ludicrous that you can't just buy one for the whole of Australia, but that's how politics works. And tomorrow we have to get up pretty bloody early because we are doing a 26k hike. We are doing a trail that takes us from Point Anne to Point Charles in Fitzgerald National Park. It's called the Mananga Trail. Well, it's part of the Mananga Trail, which usually takes 2 days. So I'm doing the kind of full day trail, and then following that we are staying near a place called Hyden, which is home to Wave Rock. I don't know if you've heard of Wave Rock. I certainly hadn't before I started doing research, but it's a massive rock that has a variety of different colorations. It almost looks a bit like a butterscotch, I think, from what I could see. So that will be exciting, and we'll see that in the morning after we stay at Wave Rock short stay. So it's like 5 minutes away from the place I wanted to see in Hyden, and then from Hyden we go to probably the most beautiful place and most notorious town in southern Australia, well, southern southwest Australia, SSW, is Esperance, which was recommended to me to go to by a friend. Just has some lovely beaches, and I'll be staying on a beach campsite at Lucky Bay, so that hopefully will be absolutely fantastic. There you do have the Pink Lake, but there was 2 Pink Lakes. So if you've ever heard of or Pink River, I think that's what it's called. If you ever heard of that, then that's where it is in Esperance, and it's meant to be quite a spectacle, but it does cost 60 quid just to get the ferry there, so we are avoiding that one, and we're going to do the Great Ocean Drive instead after we finish at Lucky Bay. There's a walk which you can do at Lucky Bay to Rossiter Bay, which is about 6.5 kilometres right along the coastline. Should just have a great overview of all the gorgeous beaches, so that would be fantastic. That will be on day 3. Day 4 we are checking out of Lucky Bay, and we are going to Sunset on the Hill, which is a place near on Scottsdale Road. I don't know where the fuck it is, but it's that's what it's called. I don't really know what I'm doing there, but it's a 6-hour drive. It's not that far away from Albany. And Albany is quite a big town as well, so I might go and check that out if I've got time before I go to a place called Dunsborough, which is where I will be meeting up with my friend Izzy, who is joining me for a few days on this trip. She lives there, has been living there for a while, so that's my first 5 days kind of in brief, which I'll obviously be recounting as I go along in each episode. So this draws us to an end of this brief introduction to our mega ultra super road trip around Western Australia. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this one, folks. Goodbye.